Hello again. We're here for part 2 of our series covering players in the community that I think are underrepresented, and I think you'll be seeing a lot more of tournaments, but we should get to know them. I'm going to try to keep this a little shorter because I did a lot of the intro spiel with the first one I recorded. This is the second one. We have ChocolateRamen514. I don't believe they're part of a clan, ranked silver. The factions they usually play are Empire, High Elves, and Vampire Counts. That's actually an interesting diversity because Empire and High Elves are kind of related, but Vampire Counts play very different. They messaged me a lot about their own strengths, but I also watched the replays they sent me, and we've played a couple times over the past few months. So my opinions on it is they have strong micro, they have strong builds. They do lack some macro decision-making. And they said they don't have the most time to play, so they wanted me to give some suggestions on how to practice more efficiently. And I will think about that. But for the meantime, we're going to look at some stuff. Now, we are not watching these replays as replays. Like, I'm not going to cast the game exactly. I'm going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the player in question. I'm going to fast forward a lot. It's not about telling the story of what happens in this battle. It's more about getting my points across. So I do like this build a lot versus Tomb King's Hammer the Witches is good. Great Cannons are good. We have a Jade Wizard, Carl Franz, up on his Griffin. Silver Bullets are very good as well. They're stocked, so they can't get shot by Ushapti. And then we have a bunch of cavalry, unbreakable troops. Good. All fun in the sun. And the Tomb Kings are going to rush. And we're going to see immediately what I mean by strong micro, strong builds, and less than ideal decision-making at some points in the larger context of things. Good little charge here from Carl Franz. And the Empire Knights realizes that the only thing nearby that could punish are the Nehekar Horsemen, and Empire Knights with Franz at their side would crump them. Cetra and the Necrosphinx aren't nearby at all. Also riding out with the Knights of the Blazing Sun, they could do okay into the chariots, and it looks over here like these cannons are doing an absolute number on the chariots. Franz and his Empire Knights are going to get a good surround over here on these Nehekar Horsemen. Very good stuff. Lots of good micro decisions going on. One big macro problem is what we're seeing right here. All the cavalry was out taking cool fights, and they did well in those individual fights, but the larger context of what was going on in the battle was slightly lost, and now these chariots are into the backline. They're going to shut down the silver bullets. They're going to shut down the cannons, right? But we're still winning on other sides, so it seems like any fight Chocolate Ramen takes is usually a good fight. It's all these microcosms, these this particular little subset is going well for me. Now Franz is going to fight Cetra the Imperishable. We get a lot of support in here. We get some cavalry to block him in. It's pretty good. Though Franz is going to get work done by the Necrosphinx. He runs away with a regrowth, and he will come back. Meanwhile, the infantry are winning. The cav has swept up a lot of the back line. They are going to come in. And now the Tomb King's player is largely down to this single entity chariot squad, which Franz can cycle charge at his leisure. And now that most of the range assets are gone, it's not as big of a deal if any of them get caught up. Franz is going to cycle charge, and Chocolate Ramen will take back control of this game. Doop 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 doop. And they win. So, good stuff there. Good individual control of units. You can see the units that were microed did what they needed to. Knights of Blazing Sun had to fight Cetra and a whole bunch of other stuff, but that happens. Ranged assets were shut down a little soon, but Franz and his infantry carried the game. As for 2, hey, it's versus Jean Pastel. I actually didn't notice that when I was setting up for this. High Elves versus Dark Elves. I do like this build. Tyrion, Dragon Princes are pretty good. I usually don't rate Dragon Princes highly in this matchup, but clearly they did some work here. Dark Elves have a pretty good skirmish core, some Scourge Runners, some cav of their own, Bleak Swords, Marathi Double Manticore. You can see something similar here. Tyrion's going to go out and run after the Scourge Runners. He's not really afraid of them. He has 125 armor, and he has healing through the Heart of Averlorn. And there is significant heavy cav advantage. Again, we see almost the exact same thing. There's no cavalry over here to punish Chocolate Ramen, so they are going to run in and get a ton of value killing chaff for almost no cost, but also there's nothing that goes both ways. There's nothing here stopping the Dark Elves from running in here, and they're going to try to shut down the ranged assets, especially when these last Dragon Princes are going to go take a cav fight. That individually, as we've been talking about, this cav fight is good for the Dragon Princes, but this does leave the central lines a little open. Tyrion's going to take a fight on the back. Dragon Princes are sweeping up the back line a lot, and now these Dragon Princes come in, but the damage is already done. One of the archers is at half health, the bolt thrower is off their crew, and the other archers are a little dazed and confused. Right. But through good pancaking and Tyrion running around being a fucking badass, but Dragon Princes are always nearby to support him. They're also coming in to ambush things, rout them off, do well, keep Tyrion in the fight. So Chocolate Ramen does just, in their own words, brute force this game back into their favor through very solid micro. But they do take some unnecessary damage through overextending for a singular good fight, but the cost behind it isn't as worth it in my opinion. But they do a good micro. As for the question about how to make practice time more efficient, if you don't have a lot of time to play, because if you have infinite time, my suggestion is just to play as many games as possible with every unit on a roster you care about and really learn the strengths and weaknesses of each individual unit and get a feel for them, whether or not they're meta. But since you don't have time to do that, I would copy meta builds, which, if I pull up the graphic again, you can see I do think they have strong builds. When I usually fight them, their builds are quite good. So I think that is correct, because you're going to want to get the most reps in on builds that you know are good. And you want to know why they're good, and you want to play them correctly. And then get the reps in on playing them correctly. Like, if you have limited practice time, you don't have the time to experiment, I guess, as much. And you just got to get good at the meta stuff. That or focusing on one playstyle, which, as I said at the start of the video, is interesting that your three mains are Empire, High Elves, and Vampire Counts, because I feel like Vampire Counts play very differently than those other two. And you could be kind of like a Xiphos-esque figure where he's really good at Xiphos things, or Lotus Moon is really good at Lotus Moon things. You don't really know them as rush players. And I'm sure they can do it, but it's like they're just really good at one specific playstyle. And that's a good way of using your time. Because not all things are created equal, you know? Like, I'm a shit rush player. I'm working on that, but it is actually very difficult. And I could take almost anyone anytime with my Skaven, but playing any other faction is a little difficult for me. So there is like a, you know, you can just learn other factions better than your knowledge of the rest of them. So I'd recommend that. It sucks to recommend someone become a one-trick, but takes less time. All right, that's this video. If you think of someone that you think I should cover, definitely DM me. Just because you DM me doesn't mean I'm going to cover them, but it helps me know about people, and this whole fucking series is about, hey, I didn't know this person existed, but they're pretty cool. So anyway, yeah, goodbye.